"Sir, I know how to make your son walk again," said the little girl with dark skin and steady eyes, standing barefoot in the cold alley. Cameron Blake had walked past that alley off Fulton Street 100 times before, but never like this. Never with the dull squeak of wheelchair wheels replacing the familiar thud of sneakers. Never with the kind of silence that pressed against the noise of the city, making it feel distant and unreal. His son, Ryan, sat quietly in the wheelchair, draped in a faded New York Yankees blanket. The boy's sandy hair was uncombed, his eyes locked on the cracked pavement as if studying every fracture, as if memorizing each line could anchor him. He was only 10, but for the past year and a half, Ryan hadn't stood up on his own. Cameron, once hailed by Fortune magazine as the man who reinvented the Lower East Side, had built his fortune by breathing life back into abandoned spaces. He had turned ruin into luxury, sorrow into skyline views. Yet all the wealth he had amassed, all the connections he could summon with a phone call, had failed to fix the one thing that truly mattered: his son's broken body. The doctors had been clinical and unsparing. T6 vertebral fracture with severe spinal cord trauma. Permanent. No cure. Cameron lived with that word like a ghost in every room. Permanent. Until he heard the girl's voice again. "Sir," she said, stepping closer. "I can help your son walk again." He turned, expecting a con artist or a lunatic. Instead, he found a small girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, emerging from the shadow of a dented trash bin. Her hoodie was torn at the sleeves, her jeans ripped at the knees, her sneakers patched together with strips of gray duct tape. But her posture was firm, her gaze unwavering. Cameron narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me. I can help," she repeated. "My name's Amira. I stay at the shelter by 9th and Park. I saw you and your son yesterday." He looked sad. Ryan lifted his head slightly, curiosity flickering where there had been only numbness. It was the first sign of life Cameron had seen in him in days. "You've been watching us?" Cameron asked warily. "Only a little," Amira answered, shifting her weight. "Most people just walk past. You stopped, picked up a scarf he dropped. That's how I knew you might listen." Cameron tightened his grip on the handles of Ryan's wheelchair. "My son's condition isn't something a kind word can fix," he said gruffly. "It's neurological. His spine's damaged. Severely." Amira didn't flinch. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the body gives up because the heart's too tired, not because it's broken." Cameron opened his mouth to dismiss her, but then Ryan spoke. "Dad, maybe we should just see." The boy hadn't asked for anything in months. No games, no outings, not even the bedtime stories he once loved. And now he was asking for this. Cameron sighed, every breath heavy with skepticism and buried hope. "If anything feels wrong," he told Ryan under his breath, "we leave." Immediately. Ryan nodded. His mouth twitched at the corners. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was the closest thing to one Cameron had seen since the accident. Amira turned and started walking without another word. They followed her, wheeling through the narrowing veins of the city, away from the polished streets Cameron usually traversed. The buildings leaned precariously overhead, graffiti staining their sides like forgotten prayers. Cameron hesitated at every corner, scanning for threats, for regret. Still, he pushed forward, driven by the slimmest, most fragile thread of possibility. Amira led them to a sunken courtyard behind a collapsed brownstone. An ancient wooden door, heavy with ivy and memory, creaked open as if pulled by invisible hands. Inside, dust motes danced in beams of sunlight filtering through cracks in the roof. The scent of dried herbs and worn leather filled the air. Sitting cross-legged on a threadbare rug was a woman, her hair silver and coiled into a thick bun atop her head, her skin dark and lined with maps of time. "I was wondering when you'd bring him," she said without looking up. Cameron froze. "How did you?" "I don't know futures," she said calmly, "but I recognize pain. It's heavier than footsteps." Ryan gazed at her wide-eyed. "Who are you?" The woman's smile was patient. "Just someone who remembers." She extended her hand. "May I?" Ryan looked to Cameron. Cameron hesitated, fear thrumming beneath his ribs, but then he nodded. The woman placed her rough, warm hands on Ryan's knees. She closed her eyes and began to hum, a low, ancient sound that vibrated through the floor itself. Ryan gasped. I felt that, he whispered. It's like buzzing. Cameron leaned closer. What do you mean, buzzing? The woman didn't open her eyes. His body remembers. That's not possible, Cameron said. Neurologically, not everything that matters fits into charts and scans, she said softly. She looked at Ryan. Do you want to try? Ryan nodded, almost imperceptibly. Gently, carefully, she guided him. His legs trembled like saplings in a storm. Cameron surged forward instinctively, but she raised her hand without opening her eyes. And somehow, he stopped. Ryan's left foot shifted. Then his right. He stood. Cameron dropped to his knees, silent sobs racking his chest. Ryan was crying too, his hands trembling by his sides, but he was upright. He took a step, then another. Then he collapsed into his father's arms, laughing and crying all at once. I felt it, Dad, he gasped. I really did. Cameron held him tight, the weight of 100 hospital rooms and sterile pronouncements falling away like ash. Amira stood to the side, silent, her face serene. The woman smiled gently, her hands folded in her lap. Cameron turned to her, desperate. How? He demanded. How did you do that? There's nothing to do, she said. Only something to remember. The spirit leads. The body follows. Cameron's logical mind rebelled, but his heart, broken open and raw, knew better. He looked at Amira. Who are you, really? She smiled shyly. Just a girl who listens. My grandmother taught me. She said people don't always need fixing. They need reminding. She knelt beside Ryan, speaking in a low, reverent tone. I was born with a twisted foot. Couldn't run. Couldn't dance. Then one day, Grandma just sat me down, touched my ankle, and said, stand if you can. I did, and I never limped again. Cameron wiped his face roughly with his sleeve. And your grandmother? He asked. Gone, Amira said simply. Last winter. Her voice cracked, just barely. I've been on my own since. Shelters mostly. Corners sometimes. You shouldn't have to live like that, Cameron said fiercely. You're a child. Amira shrugged. Lots of us are. The streets don't care how old you are. Cameron swallowed hard. I can help you, he said. A real home. A future. Anything you need. Amira smiled sadly. Thank you, she said. But I'm where I'm needed. Corners nobody sees. Rooms nobody remembers. He handed her a card anyway. If you ever change your mind, he said, voice thick with emotion. Or if you just need anything, call. Amira tucked the card into her coat. Tyler hugged her tightly. Will I see you again? He asked. She smiled through her tears. If you ever forget how to believe, she whispered, I'll probably be nearby. They left, stepping into the bright blaze of an autumn afternoon. Ryan's steps cautious, but his spirit unbreakable. Cameron looked back only once. And in that crumbling doorway, Amira and the silver-haired woman stood, framed by sunlight and shadow. Healing, Cameron realized, didn't always come in hospitals or clinics. Sometimes, it came in alleys, carried by barefoot prophets and old songs humming against the bones of forgotten buildings. And sometimes, it stayed, even when you couldn't see it anymore.